But to me, Jonathan Bailey and someone like Andrew Scott in Fleabag, they're an example of why we shouldn't be too rigid about it, because ultimately we want to see them playing loads of different types of roles. You know, just because you're a gay actor, that doesn't mean that you have to only play gay characters.
I am obsessed with Heated Rivalry, and I just need to decompress and talk about it with someone. Welcome to The Breakdown. I'm Jack Guinness on Gay Star News. I'm a contributing editor at British GQ. I write for Vogue, Tatler, The Times, The Standard, and I'm joined by one of my favourite cultural commentators in the world. He's funny, he's brilliant, and he's incredibly well informed. It's Louis Staples.
Favourite in the world? I'm truly honoured.
You're in my top three.
Top three, okay, that's fine.
Who have you written for?
I've written for Rolling Stone, GQ, the New York Times, New York Magazine, and many more.
It's really mean to make someone read out all the things.
Yeah, I know. I was like, wow, I've forgotten every single place I've ever written for.
But you have just done the cover story for Glamour about industry, haven't you?
I did, just yesterday. Thank you for bringing that up. I did. I just did the cover for Glamour UK and USA, the January cover. It's transatlantic because it's for a transatlantic show, Industry, which has returned this week for its 4th series, which is very exciting.
We're not here to talk about Industry. It's a great show, but we're here to talk about Heated Rivalry. It's taken the world by storm. It's a cultural phenomenon. Why is the show so big?
The show is huge. The writer Tom Smythe posted on X the other day that the stars of Heated Rivalry are getting the type of success that you see in movie montages, which I thought was a great way of putting it, because they really are. It's like that bit in the rom-com where everything's going great.
And it goes really quickly.
And it goes really quickly.
So it's been viewed on HBO. I think it's had a 600 million minute watch time. 100 million of that's me. Just rewinding it. Why are audiences so obsessed with it?
Well, I think the show's sort of like nothing that we've ever seen before. I think that often when it comes to gay relationships, we see these coming out stories and it's maybe a bit more aimed at teenagers. But I think that something that's really interesting about Heated Rivalry is that it takes that coming out story and applies it to adults, but still in a very mainstream space. Like, this isn't a sort of particularly gritty show. I would say that it's a very palatable, mainstream, emotional drama.
It's not mainstream palatable. I'd
say that it's palatable.
It's palatable, but it's so rude. Can we talk about the sex scenes?
The sex scenes. There are many of them. Which one?
Well, we don't need to go through them blow by blow, quite literally. Apparently, when they were casting it, they were very open from the get-go with the actors that this is going to be a hypersexualized show, and a huge amount of actors wouldn't even audition for it, and they must be absolutely kicking themselves now. The sex there's no full frontal nudity, but it is a different type of sex than we've maybe seen. What do you think about some of the responses to the sex scenes? Because I read, I'm not going to name names, but there was a certain review by someone who shall remain nameless, and they really went to town on like how sexy the show is. Do you think if this was a show with straight sex, we'd be seeing this kind of discourse occurring?
I definitely don't think we'd be seeing this type of discourse occurring, because I think that it's part of why it's captured the zeitgeist in a way. I think that gay guys are obsessed with seeing something that's so passionate and where the sex is so central in the story. But also something I've been really interested in is how many women are horny for the show. There's a huge female fandom. I think that, out of that 600 million minutes, a huge chunk of them will be women. And we're really seeing, there's an interesting split, I think, where gay guys are really thrilled to see gay sex on screen, but women almost get, and this is anecdotal, the woman I've spoken to, there's almost a pleasure in not seeing themselves in the story. So there's almost like a relief and a relaxation that comes from seeing gay sex, so that they're not a part of it. They don't have to identify with the woman.
Okay, I love the idea of women being like, yay, female erasure. But
the Bechdel test.
Is there also a sense that it's men's bodies being objectified for a change instead of women's bodies?
I think so. I mean, if we're to get into it, about half of gay porn is actually viewed by women, which is a really interesting statistic. Every year for the last bazillion years, the Pornhub survey has said that is true. So I think that for women, if we think about straight porn and also, straight sex on television, often there's a woman at the center that's being, sort of subjugated, or that it's definitely through a sort of male gaze, and sometimes it can be quite degrading. So I think for women, it's almost like being freed from that in a way, which I find really interesting, that you could almost get more pleasure through not seeing yourself on the screen.
I get more pleasure from not seeing myself on the screen. I don't believe you. I don't want to look at myself. There's no mirror above my bed. Okay, so we've talked about that aspect of it. Also the romance. It is an intensely romantic show. Before I watched it, I thought it was going to be like The Summer I Turned Pretty, right? So I thought it was going to be like, I don't want to offend the fans of The Summer I Turned Pretty because they're obsessive.
Yeah, you don't want to offend Gen Z.
I'm not going to offend Gen Z, but I thought it was going to be slightly more trashy. One, it's shot like a 90s indie movie. The script is incredible. I genuinely think the script is brilliant. There's some amazing jokes in there. There's a bit when Ilya's talking to his partner about his Asian heritage, and then he asks him, where did you get the boring from, your mum or your dad? Like, the script is really funny, and the acting's brilliant. So, like, the romantic side of it, talk me a little bit about why that's resonating with the audience.
Well, I think it's that old sort of adage that the most exciting thing about watching romances is the will they, won't they. It's the lead up, and that's essentially so far been this pretty much entire show. You know, in rom-coms, they get together at the very end for a reason, because we like to see the sort of winding twists and the will they, won't they. So I think with this relationship, we get very invested in it as well, because it's over so many years. One thing I really like about it is how they're in this sort of situationship, if you could call it that, for I think it's about a decade.
Which a lot of gay guys will relate to.
Relatable. So yes, we all have those like men on our phones that like we've been, texting since 2017.
If my boyfriend's watching it, I don't. I deleted all those numbers. But yeah, you do. You have those guys that you're like, you are.
Exactly. So there's a sort of like interesting thing where it's relatable to us, but also then we're very invested in their romance because it's been going on for such a long time. And also that the circumstances seem so irreconcilable with them actually being out and happy together at the very beginning. They're both in these situations that seem like, how are they possibly going to reconcile this? So it's kind of thrilling to watch them sort of edge, so to speak, closer and closer and closer towards a conclusion.
But it's not just their circumstances, it's their emotional states that won't allow them to connect. Ilya doesn't know how to love, and Shane is desperate for love but can't admit it. And we've all been in those relationships where one of the people is more open and needy, and the other one might need them just as much but can't express it. Like, it's like a time-old gay story. And I think maybe women love it because they've been in those relationships as well with someone that seems emotionally unavailable. Right. And then there's that thing of like, can I crack them? Mm-hmm. I remember I once dated this guy and he turned to me on one of our first dates and said, I don't believe in love. And I was like, I'm going to get you.
No, I'm obsessed with you.
I'm going to make you believe in love. And then when he told me he loved me, I was like, laters, bye.
Yeah, exactly. But that's kind of what I was just saying. Like, the lead up is the fun bit. Once you got to it, it kind of becomes a bit like, oh, well, that was fun. So that's kind of like what the show is about. But I think it's really interesting that they had two relationships. So they had Kip and the other one whose name is escaping me. Scott Hunter, who is the hockey player, and Kip, who's like this ridiculously ripped smoothie maker, which, by the way, is the most realistic thing about this show, that the smoothie maker would have the like most ripped body even compared to professional athletes. That's very gay culture. So they have...
It's authentic.
So they have their relationship, which I would say is the more sort of typical closeted relationship that we're more used to seeing, which is sort of what you described, like one person who's like locked in the closet saying they're never going to come out, and then the other one who's out of the closet who's like, I'll be the one to change you. So they've got that in episode 3, and then it returns in episode 5 briefly. But I think it's interesting to have that juxtaposed with Shane and Ilya, because one thing that I think is really interesting about the show is that they're both in a similar position, not emotionally as you say, but they are both hockey players. They're dealing with similar pressures. They're not from totally different worlds in the moment that we're seeing them. So it's not the same sort of pull, and I think that's part of the reason why their relationship goes on so long, because they both seem sort of happy with the status quo until they're not. So there's an interesting juxtaposition between those two relationships.
There's a great bit of wish fulfillment. Like, we've all had shit jobs, like working in a smoothie shop, albeit very muscly, and dreaming that some celebrity is going to come and rescue you. And I haven't really seen that kind of like, almost like a soap, like a fantasy fulfillment in a gay show before. And I think when we're all young and gay and miserable, we just want someone to come and rescue us. And that is a really kind of fairy tale-like thing. And we've been excluded from those narratives traditionally.
Absolutely. I think in some ways the ultimate gay fantasy is to like end up with, the gay hockey player, the celebrity.
Well, we didn't know it was a hockey player. We thought it was a footballer, but now we're changing it.
It could be anyone, but I think in some ways that's the ultimate gay fantasy, is the gay fairy tale, as you say, is to end up with that type of person. And I think in some ways maybe that's why gay people in generalization can be quite hard on gay celebrities, because we adore them, like we want to be part of their lives, but then we almost like resent it a little bit as well. But I've been really interested in the reaction to this, that most of the time when, as you know, a queer show or a queer film comes out, I've been really struck by over the last few years how the harshest critics of the actors in it, of the creators, are always gay people, to the point where I think it's justified in some ways that we would want to scrutinize art that represents our lives, but then often I think it tips over into like being almost like paranoid or like in some sort of trauma response almost. But that hasn't happened here so far.
What underlies that? So in Heartstopper, for example, we saw like the vilification of Kit, who is in Heartstopper, with people. He got photographed with a woman, and people were like, he's not gay, he doesn't represent us, and it was horrific. And a lot of that wasn't coming from the right; it was coming from the left. And then he got forced to come out as bisexual, and no one should be forced to share their sexuality. Okay, so Francis Arnaud, who plays the really incredibly hot and handsome.
You're going to have to be more specific.
He talked about his co-stars. He said, I feel like we have to remember what happened to Kit Connor, for example, on Heartstopper. Bullying people into coming out is not the kind of representation that we should want. The stars of the show have been private, is the word, about their sexuality. Hudson Williams says, I don't think it's my responsibility to define my sexuality for anyone. If the show was about a straight couple, no one would be asking these questions. And Connor Story, when questioned about his sexuality, said, I'm going to keep that to myself. What do you think about these two actors protecting their privacy?
I think that they've got an absolute right to protect their privacy, especially given what you just said about the Kit Connor story. I think that it's a little bit more complicated than simply people, turning up with pride flags outside people's houses being like, you must come out of the closet.
Have you done that?
No, but I mean, I wouldn't put it past me. But I think that there's a paranoia among queer audiences that they're somehow being sort of, taken advantage of, or
their lived experience is being capitalized on for other people's success and queer baiting.
And that's absolutely not made up. Like, that has happened. And whether it's, representation in the 2000s where we were sort of just the witty sidekick, or, people, yes, as you mentioned, like queer baiting and things like that. So I think that there's this paranoia which isn't totally made up, but then the reaction to that is sometimes an overcorrection, which becomes almost sort of hounding people. And we have to put ourselves in the position of these actors. I mean, it's so easy to say, be black and white about it, but these men are like in their mid-20s, they're practically children. They're experiencing a level of fame that none of us could really even imagine in this precise moment. So I think that they've got a right to talk about it in their own way, on their own terms.
So 7 actors have won the Oscar for playing queer characters. I think about 3 actors won Oscars and then came out afterwards. So we do have an issue in the culture of people being applauded for playing queer, but people that are living authentically and out aren't rewarded. So there is an issue there. I genuinely think it's about the performance. These 2 lead actors have such like an intimate, incredible chemistry, and they did loads of chemistry tests before they got cast, that to me, I mean, they're clearly, I don't want to speculate on someone's sexuality, but like, I don't need them to say it.
Right.
I can feel it. I think the issue is when you see that there's an actor that's made their whole career out of playing straight and being straight, then suddenly playing a gay role, capitalizing on that and getting loads of plaudits. That's where it feels a bit icky for me. These 2 guys haven't talked about their sexuality and they don't owe us that. But the way they live feels quite queer coded. So I feel less sensitive about these 2.
Yeah, I think it was Darren Criss who said that he feels culturally queer, which I thought was, that sort of got quote tweeted a lot of the time, but I did kind of understand what he was saying, in that he's very immersed in the community, he's, part of the community as an ally, in a way, and I think that even something like that does make a difference. With regards to Heated Rivalry, I think that the film All of Us Strangers is a really interesting example here, because my answer to this question is like, sometimes it matters, sometimes it doesn't, and it sort of depends on the role and the exact thing that we're talking about. So in that film, Andrew Scott plays a gay man, and Paul Mescal is opposite him. And I think the director, Andrew Hay, said that like for the Andrew Scott character, who was sort of based on him, it was really important to him that the actor was gay, because they needed to have a sort of a specific shorthand on set, and there was just certain things that he really needed to be able to communicate with a gay actor. But then he said it wasn't as important with the Paul Mescal character, and I think that Paul Mescal played the role beautifully, but that's an example of a film where like there's both. and it actually totally works. So
You look a bit like Paul Mescal. I've just noticed that.
You're not the first person to say that to me. I don't see it personally, but I'll take it.
So I trained as an actor, and about 20 years ago, I met with some of the biggest agents in the world, like the best agents, and every single one said to me, if you want a big career, you cannot come out. You know, this is way before Jonathan Bailey, and I got told that, and it was crushing because I'd spent my whole adult life coming to terms with who I am, coming out of the closet, and then being told you have to go back in. So I think we can't really understand the pressure that's on these people when they're making decisions about their career. Like having Jonathan Bailey and Sexy Priest.
Yeah.
That's new. Mm-hmm. Like that's a very new thing. So young actors are navigating this scenario. It's really interesting.
But to me, Jonathan Bailey and someone like Andrew Scott in Fleabag, they're an example of why we shouldn't be too rigid about it, because ultimately we want to see them playing loads of different types of roles. You know, just because you're a gay actor, that doesn't mean that you have to only play gay characters. And that would sort of seem like it's the natural trajectory if you're far too rigid about it.
If we take this to an extreme, we're saying you can only play a character that you have the lived experience of. Like, these guys aren't professional hockey players. There's also some criticism from the queer community about the author and about speculation about, is she queer? Are any of her family members queer? Like, can a woman that is cis and straight write a work of art about someone that has a different lived experience? Like, if we follow that to if we take it to its extreme, we wouldn't have Shakespeare, we wouldn't have Dickens. You can't just write about what you know. But that said, if marginalized people are being excluded, if gay people aren't even getting the opportunity to play gay roles and they're all just going to straight actors, that is a problem. But I think the pendulum is swinging around, and we just need to find a nice medium point.
No, I totally agree. I think that you're right. There's definitely been a change where there's a lot more gay and queer roles available for those actors as well. So it's not like, as you said, in the sort of 2000s where you'd see all these straight actors winning Oscars for playing gay roles. Now that that's not the only representation of queer people, we're seeing so many different types of shows, so many different types of films. And I think that this show is really interesting because I think Jacob Tierney. I think that Jacob Tierney said it was something like sophisticated smart, which I thought was like...
Put that on my gravestone.
Yes.
Love it.
Sophisticated smart. I think that...
Oh, what were you thinking, slut?
You said it. So I think that that's sort of how I would describe it. I think that type of smart does appeal to a lot of different people. I think that your girlfriend could watch it, your gay best friend could watch it, your mom could possibly watch the show.
I think, but labeling it as smart removes like the emotional core. Like, I was crying hysterically. Like
the last 2 episodes.
Episode 5, and then the final episode, the scene when he's coming out to his parents, like, it killed me. Like, it's not so just smart. It has a deep emotional heart. There's like such pathos and wisdom in it.
And I think Hudson Williams does such a good job with that character because so much of it is about silence with that character. So
he's so contained in his performance.
And it's actually been really funny to watch this, as I was saying, this like movie montage of them becoming so famous and doing all these videos together and stuff, because it's I know acting. Wow, just realized acting is real, but they're so different. He's not
like that.
Both of them are so different, which I'm like, I can't believe it. But he's sort of like that. So it must have been very, I would imagine, challenging for him to be so contained.
The stillness of him. I mean, there's some moments where he's just holding back tears, and instead of like showing us his feelings, he's hiding them as the character, and it is a masterclass in acting. I think the performances are just incredible in this film. Thanks so much for joining me for part 1. Please join me for part 2, where we're going to be unpacking Heated Rivalry a little bit more.